you've probably seen in the news that we did have a fire on Sunday evening, reported about 6:30. It was at 110 Inverness Way over on Bay Farm. When that fire occurred, my attempt is to try to answer for you any questions about our response and resources and times and things like that. So when that fire occurred, all 4 of our fire engines were in their stations and available for response, as was Truck 1 at Station 1. Our Truck 2 was just ending a medical call, returning to station, and our 3 ambulances were all busy on medical calls and were off the island at the time taking patients to other hospitals. The normal dispatch for this type of fire would be 3 engines, 2 trucks, 1 ambulance, and the chief officer. Because the 1 truck was busy, an additional engine was sent, so 4 engines instead of 3 engines. And because our ambulance was busy, AMR was dispatched to cover for the ambulance. And then within seconds of the dispatch, Truck 2 reported that they were available, and then dispatch added them to the alarm. So we ended up where we normally would get 18 people, we had, I believe, 21 people on pretty much the initial response to this call. So there were ample people, and they were responding normally from their stations. There weren't any undue delays or anything of that nature. The response times were within the normal range. In fact, the first engine responding from the Bay Farm station was on scene within 2 minutes and 2 seconds travel time. Engine 1, Truck 1, and the BC, all coming from Station 1, arrived in the 5 minute to 5 minute and 15 seconds bracket for their response time, the travel time.
Could I just ask, you're saying travel time, what does that mean?
From the time they leave the station until they get on scene.
So that's 2 minutes and 2 seconds for the
first unit, yes.
And what's the time before that?
The time before that is referred to as turnout time, or the time it takes the firefighters to get dressed and get on the engine and move out of the station. The time for that company was 2 minutes and about 25 seconds.
So then the total from the time I guess the call came in to the arriving at the scene was like 4 minutes and 27 seconds?
Yes,
like
exactly.
Okay.
And I'm going by printout of times that we got from our dispatch center, so they're the official record. And then after those units arriving from Station 1...
Just comment.
Yes.
When you're describing things like this, wouldn't it be better to say the response time instead of breaking it down to travel time? I mean, I understand for your records to break it down like that, from travel time to the initial time, but wouldn't it be...
I can report it either way. There's another component called dispatch time, and so sometimes it's confusing as to which times are you included. That's why I clarified travel time.
Yeah, I think what counts to the resident is that from the time that someone answers 911 to the time the truck shows up is what counts.
Okay.
So can we...
Yeah, I think that's what people would understand is,
And so the normal dispatch time is 1 minute. That's what the standard allows. And if I remember right, dispatch time here was well under 1 minute. So, okay.
So it was 5.
And then the other remaining units, Engine 2 and Engine 3, arrived in about the...
Excuse me, Chief, just to be clear, so it was 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 2 seconds plus something between a minute and instantaneous to get from the time the call was received to the time the firefighters got on the scene? From the
time the call was received for the first unit to get there, the unit, I have the time that they were dispatched. That's the time that we tracked. That's the time that was at 6:28, and they were on scene at 6:32 and 31 seconds. So about 4.5 minutes.
What time was the call received again?
6:28.
6:28. Thank you.
06. So it's about 4.5 minutes.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So all of our units arrived without any unusual delays or anything. They all, except for the truck, which was already out of the station, which improved their response time. They were already on the vehicle and moving. all arrived within normal parameters. Then, in addition to the Alameda units, a second alarm was requested, and this brought an additional 3 engines and a truck and a battalion chief from Oakland with another 17 people. These units were requested to cover our fire stations, which is normal protocol, but for some reason, which we're not clear yet, they showed up at the scene at the fire. They were eventually redirected to the fire stations to cover the stations in the city so that the city would still be protected.
Councilmember Don?
They didn't break out at that point. They were just redirected.
Well, they did get off their engines and they went to work. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yes, they did go to work on the fire.
But they were redirected.
Eventually, as soon as our incident commander could get them gathered up and, back on their engines and out of the scene. And it did take some time. It did take some time to do that. In fact, for a while, our incident commander had more people than he knew what to do with. They were in the way, and he was anxious to get them off the scene and into the stations where he needed them.
Councilmember Taylor?
I had understood that there was a period of time between when the first engine arrived and the second in terms of their ability to get back up before they could begin fighting the fire at the residence.
There wasn't any extraordinary delay, no more than would normally be experienced from units coming from different stations. Station 4 being the closest, and they were in station, they got there first. The other closest units are Station 1, and they were in station, and they left immediately and got there within the normal time that they would. There were no unusual delays. Now, those units from Station 1 did take longer to get there because they had a longer travel distance in order to get there.
So you didn't have firefighters waiting for a second truck with a hose capability before the fire?
Ordinarily, when the first crew gets on, there are things that they can be doing. They can be pulling a line. If they have time, the officer should do a size up and a walk around of the building to check all the conditions and circumstances and where the fire is and gather as much information as he can if he's waiting for other units to arrive. I do know that when they entered the building, they did have both the initial line and the backup line in place.
Okay.
What time did the second apparatus get there?
Okay. Engine 1 and truck 1 and the battalion chief all got there at the same time, about 6:35.
So it took them about 2.5 minutes longer than the,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. So then, when Engine 4 arrived, they would do what I just said, give a size up of the incident for other units coming in to know what's going on. I wasn't there, of course, so I can't report from direct experience, but what would be typical is the size up and to do some assessment of the building, be pulling their lines and getting them in place. They need to put their air packs on and things like that. When they got there, the neighbors were in the yard and reported to the crews that no one was home. So that was a good piece of information to get, to know that there was nobody in the building. Also, the fire was already coming out of the structure. The neighbor reported when he saw it, the flames were, he said, 30 feet in the air. So the fire was already well advanced when our initial crews got there. In fact, they reported that when they went in the front door, there was fire in every room that they saw, and so it was pretty well involved by the time we got there. Nobody being home, we think we know the cause of the fire, not absolute, but it had time to grow in intensity because nobody was there to report it. Didn't get reported until people saw it coming out of the roof and out of the windows and things like that. There was an atrium in the building, which probably the glass windows broke and allowed the fire to, get to the outside of the structure.